two more things. The Department of Commerce is going to start issuing its statistics on the blockchain because you are the crypto president, and we are going to put out GDP on the blockchain so people can use the blockchain for data distribution, and then we're going to make that available to the entire government so all of you can do it. We're just ironing out all the details so we can do it.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce for the United States, talking about putting the government's data on the blockchain. And actually, this is the broader application really coming through for distributed ledger technology. Not only is it going to entirely revolutionize the financial system, it's going to modernize it, but actually it's going to modernize systems more broadly. With the implementation of a distributed ledger, you can create effectively a source of truth. I think one of the best quotes in regards to summarizing how impactful this technology is if we had a distributed ledger at the dawn of mankind, we would have a very different history today than the one that has, in my opinion, I believe, been falsified to essentially build this reality for you to keep you guys asleep. Could be quite a kind of trivial and non-energetic word for me to fathom. But just yesterday, we actually spoke about how NASA were actually exploring also the implementation of a distributed ledger for verifiable data in aerospace. And actually one of the, or the distributed ledger that they were essentially looking at was Hedera. The stamp is finally recorded into Hedera and visible through mirror nodes. Effectively, Howard there at the government talking about a similar thing. And all data, I think data perhaps not moved on chain, but logic and metadata certainly. You know, blockchains don't make very good data storage centers because it's quite clunky, but they are great at recording things. That's the whole kind of property of a distributed ledger. So pretty huge news from Howard Lutnick there. An interesting guy indeed. I think he actually had, was it the second or the first floor, highest floor when the sort of Twin Towers took place. Quite a horrible story that he tells on the back end of that, very tragic one. But an interesting guy. I mean, Trump literally has around him in regards to his cabinet the kind of Avengers. You know, Scott Bessent, you guys know I've been very kind of vocal on his impressive nature as a hedge fund manager. He's somebody that traded along George Soros. When you hear the term global macro, which has now been essentially taken, that was originally George Soros, Stan Druckenmiller and Scott Bessent's thing. So it's interesting. We are now seeing the broader applications for distributed ledgers in regards to the government and their data. That's huge. The government is going to use and utilize public distributed ledgers, likely the ones made in America. We know there was actually a filing from, I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Rex. I can't remember who it was that they were going to facilitate a American-made crypto ETF. That's rather interesting. And we do have some news on ETFs to sort of follow all this up. We've got lots to cover in this daily market update. This is a Bitwise Chainlink ETF filing. It was a matter of time before you got a Chainlink filing or multiple of them. And Chainlink is just such a staple part of the overall cryptocurrency space. I know there's a kind of battle going on right now between Chainlink and XRP. I don't think there needs to be. I think they serve different roles. Chainlink doesn't eradicate XRP and its use as a bridge currency. Its use as that kind of intermediary to allow for kind of global remittances. But Chainlink does play a role in regards to essentially being the connective tissue that interweaves the fabrics of the traditional financial world and the blockchain world. You still need blockchains for that interweaving to take place and for Chainlink to essentially be relevant. But it is interesting all that they're doing with Swift. Chainlink, large part of my portfolio, has been for a long time, something that is spectacular for me from 2018 onwards. There has now been another Bitwise filing. The Chainlink Reserve, which was recently announced, Chainlink being a real star recently, just continues to gobble up Chainlink. I mean, this was, you know, it's effectively doubled in a very short period of time. If this continues, it's going to be pretty remarkable to see how much Chainlink gets locked into the reserve, taken off of the market, and also introduced as buy pressure by the conversion that takes place. So a lot going on right now with Chainlink. Nate Garcia reporting something extremely interesting here, and we're going to go on to something we touched on yesterday, which is China's #1 supply chain finance platform, partnering with XRP to bring onto the XRP ledger their supply chain operation. But this is extremely interesting. It says CME Group XRP, or CME Group says XRP futures contracts have crossed over $1 billion in open interest. That means positions currently open. Fastest ever contract to do so took just over 3 months. So XRP has the fastest ever CME futures contract to get to over $1 billion in open interest. Does that not show an extreme demand for this asset? I think you're going to see that amplified when you get your spot ETF approvals. It goes on to say there's already $800 million in futures-based XRP ETFs. I think people might be underestimating demand for spot XRP ETF. And we are going to get these ETFs this year. And it's going to be very interesting to see, of course, how the markets react. Typically with ETF approvals, you've actually had a bit of a slump and then they sort of get going. But people are going to be able to see the real demand. When you unlock those ETFs as vehicles to invest in, you're really unlocking the largest pool of liquidity, which sits with traditional assets. And ETFs are almost kind of a stepping stone for TradFi guys to actually get into crypto. And they kind of act as a link to the traditional world. An XRP ETF is going to be nothing short of sensational. And you can see that not only through... And let's show you this actually, because we didn't cover CoinShares report on Monday because it came out late. But not only are you seeing extreme demand through the futures, if we go to their fund flows, we had negative flows last week, barring obviously XRP and Solana. I mean, look at XRP in terms of an ETF, 2.7 billion. In demand in assets under management in regards to ETPs. This is just outside of the United States alone, which literally accounts for 90+% of fund flows, 90+%, so 95% nearly. It's going to be spectacular when we get that ETF. Very interesting to hear this from the CME. It is interesting also yesterday. I didn't really see people covering this. Maybe they didn't quite get the scope of it and how big it is. But this is Linklogis and XRP Ledger announced strategic partnership to advance global digital supply chain finance applications. By the way, this is the largest, the number one supply chain finance platform in China. And they're essentially looking to... Logilynx will integrate its global digital supply chain platform onto the XRP Ledger mainnet to enable the circulation and cross-border settlement of digital assets backed by real-world trade flows. This partnership not only marks the entry into the global decentralized financial ecosystem, but also demonstrates the company's continued innovation for cross-border trade finance. I think these guys last year, in terms of their trade finance operations, it was something like 441 billion RMB they did in terms of volume, which is about $60 billion. And a good portion of that could be coming onto the XRP ledger. And it's just another kind of example of people utilizing XRP. You know, I truly don't believe that Chainlink eradicates XRP. In fact, I think if anything, it strengthens it in regards to allowing the traditional financial space to gain access to it. Interesting news, Alex. We have a reporter that works for us. Alex, great guy. He dug this out in regards to R3 providing institutional gateways into Web3, helping tokenize real-world assets, has supported an open letter that calls for the UK to create a robust stablecoin strategy. Now, given what's happening, I'll just show you this. GB10, I'm going to have to switch the screen back to me. This is your government bonds right now. They're not looking great. In fact, let's go on the yields because that highly demonstrates it. So this actually looks like it wants to break to the upside. This is when they threw Liz Truss out. For essentially proposing, by the way, cuts that would, I believe, have benefited everybody. Yes, the rich would have received cuts, but that would have benefited everybody. I mean, it's like there was an individual at the elections, the last elections, of course, Labour won, and one of their campaign promises was actually to increase the tax-free allowance for everybody to £20,000 from 12. Nobody even spoke about that. And what you've essentially voted in is the complete opposite. And look at how we're getting taxed whilst inflated away in terms of our value. It's literally a game that is being played upon the United Kingdom right now to essentially impoverish the people within it and to keep us weak. And, you know, if you look at health stats and things like that right now in the UK, it's actually abominable. But the UK is in trouble with its debt markets, just like the United States adopting, and there's going to be this arms race, stable coins to introduce a buyer to the treasury markets, but also actually propagate dollar dominance. You know, there's going to be this race for currency relevance. The UK could very much do the same thing, and this is a letter from R3, which nobody's really reported on yet. It says, "Dear Chancellor, in line with the government's commitment to making the UK the global hub for digital asset technologies, it is important to consider the role of all new forms of digital money, including central bank-backed instruments, tokenized deposits, and stable coins will have in driving innovation, expanding financial inclusion, and enhancing the global competitiveness of the UK markets. All offer distinct yet complementary pathways to modernizing the current financial market infrastructure. Underpinning their success is a regulatory approach that enables safe experimentation and responsible adoption across all models. This will ensure the UK remains a global leader in the financial services catalyst, cross-border investments and settlements, and reinforces the international role of the sterling in the digital age." In terms of FX trading, the United Kingdom actually does around about half of all FX in terms of volume and derivatives, interest rate based derivatives. It's about 5.4 trillion daily, I think the UK does. It's a major powerhouse. We already see Lloyd's banking group with Hedera, Archax and Aberdeen actually starting to modernise and going first with live initiatives. It says, "Seizing the stablecoin advantage, a national strategy for the United Kingdom." This is interesting stuff. "The emergence of stablecoins represent not only a technological innovation, but a strategic opportunity to enhance the UK's global financial leadership rather than falling behind other jurisdictions. To ensure the UK is at the forefront, we believe a proactive, coordinated national strategy is needed, one that positions stablecoins not only as a risk to be contained, but as a financial infrastructure to be responsibly embraced. We welcome your commitment in the Mansion House speech to drive forward development in blockchain technologies, including stablecoins and tokenized securities, as this signals the UK's readiness to embed these innovations into the core of its financial system. This political will, paired with technological process and regulatory clarity, can help unlock private instruments supporting sterling-denominated digital assets or digital markets and solidify the UK's leadership in shaping global standards. At the present, the UK is at risk of missing transformative moment for British financial services and the pound's international role. We did speak about the kind of arms race that's taking place, and the dollarization of things isn't good for other countries. Rethinking the regulatory lens, the UK's current approach defines stablecoins primarily as crypto assets with reference to fiat currency, a framing that may inadvertently limit broader economic and financial opportunities. This definition focuses on form rather than function. This is akin to defining a check as a paper with reference to currency when both are essentially negotiable instruments backed by regulated issuers. This lack of clarity leads industry confusion. The regulatory framework has taken some steps in ensuring consumers' protection and systemic oversight, but further refinement is urgently needed to avoid inadvertent discouraging innovation. international comparisons, particularly with the United States, where policymakers view stablecoins as a tool to national economic interest, highlighting how decisive actions can support demand for sovereign debt and reinforce the currency's global role. And they need it right now with what's taking place with the yields. This is the yield, so this means debt effectively down, and this could spike up. You could be looking at a real debt issue across the board, and stablecoins can help to alleviate that, and it's of the utmost importance that countries adopt this technology. As far as crypto is concerned, you guys all know the plan. We're just in the summer doldrums. This period will pass. We will embark on higher grounds. A total 2, total 3 is on the cusp of breaking out into price discovery. You want to be on board for that. The future is a bright one as it relates to cryptocurrency asset holders, and we'll keep you covered every single day as far as the news is concerned with all the things that are relevant within the past 24, 48 hours. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.